We're not talking about the best of them. We're just talking about the rest of them.
Not the worst parts, but the best parts. And the best parts we have. The best of the rest.
Hello, and change is like death. You don't know what it looks like until you're standing at the gate. Welcome to Best of the Rest, the show where we take a second look at movies that were poorly received upon release and challenge ourselves to only talk about the things we like and what the movie does well. It's Jurassic Park sequel month, and this week we are talking the 2018 film Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom. My name is Chris Logan, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host that I purchased in an illegal auction at some rich dude's house, Andrew Williams. Are you ready for this one, Andrew?
You know, that makes sense. I thought that was a bad dream I had, but it turns out it's just a suppressed memory. All right. Makes a lot more sense than I thought.
The trank gun you got shot with.
Thanks, Ted Levine. Yeah, I haven't gone back to this one in some time, so I was excited to jump back in and revisit this one. Did not revisit it on my preparation for Dominion, so was excited to go back. This is one that I've seen some people they hold it in fairly high regard, so I was curious if on a rewatch I was going to potentially see what the others were seeing.
Interesting. So you saw it in theaters, I assume, the first time.
I did, yes.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned on previous episodes, this was my first time watching this movie. I saw World in theaters and hadn't seen a Jurassic Park film since. So I watched it this week, and I'm excited to talk about it. I will say I'm pretty positive on it overall, and I've got a lot of positive stuff to share about it. As far as the reception that I remember, like when it came out, I know, Jurassic World was a huge deal. It made all the money and got good reviews. Jurassic Park is back, baby. That was like the overwhelming feeling at the time. But I remember this one coming out, and I remember the reception being much less enthusiastic. I remember people saying it was kind of boring, and it just didn't. People that even loved World weren't necessarily coming out loving this one. It has its fans, as you mentioned, as all movies do, but we're going to go through the numbers here, and they kind of reflect that this one just didn't hit with as many people as that last one did.
Yeah, that seemed to be the generic response. Yeah, that seemed to be the general response. Was just it kind of came and went. I feel like this movie kind of came out and then disappeared pretty quickly. Still made a good amount of money in the meantime, but nobody was really talking about it in the aftermath like they were with World. Like, World was like, we're back. Fallen Kingdom was kind of like, yeah, but should we?
Remember that movie, Andrew? We're Back? The dinosaur movie?
Yes, I do. You saw what I did there. But yeah, so it kind of came out, like I said, we're looking at a much more mixed response. I do know somebody who ranks this as his second favorite of the franchise. Obviously has its fans, has its defenders. I think a lot of people do appreciate that it's kind of doing something different, to a degree. So we'll dive into all that and more.
I didn't know what to expect. I knew just from trailers I had seen there's something about a volcano. They were rescuing the dinosaurs. I kind of gathered that. And I knew that Ian Malcolm returned. Like, he was very prominent in those trailers. And I think this was also around the time, maybe the same year, that Independence Day Resurgence came out. So, like, Jeff Goldblum was in, like, full legacy sequel mode. They were bringing him back to these franchises. And I was surprised by a couple things when I actually saw it. One, that plot with the volcano is less than half the movie. And also, Jeff Goldblum is hardly in the movie. Not necessarily saying those are good or bad things, but I really didn't know what to expect going in. And boy, there was a lot of stuff I never would have guessed was going to happen. So yeah, let's jump into it. But let's set the stage a little bit. The movie was released June 22nd of 2018, made on a budget of $170 million, up a little bit from the last entry. At the box office, it brings in $1.3 billion. Andrew, that's so much money. It's not as much as the last one, which the last one was the third highest grossing film of all time when it came out.
Yeah.
Like, it's not surprising or scary that it didn't match the last one. I don't think the studio was worried or anything. $1.3 billion. There was an era a few years before the release of this movie, maybe like, the early 2010s, where you were getting these really big box offices and you could always be like, well, 3D costs, ticket prices twice as much. That's inflating it. But 2018, we were kind of out of that fad. They're still making them. They're still released, but not nearly as prevalent. A lot of people just went and saw this movie. It was just a bona fide hit. However, critically, not well received. It holds just a 47% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's far from the worst score we've seen on here, but it's still firmly negative. And audiences are right there with it. The audience score is 48%. So people, by and large, aren't singing the praises of this movie.
No, they are not. Like you said, this movie made a ton of money. It was third highest grossing film for that year. The only things that grossed more money than this were Black Panther, which was only made like less than $50 million more. The gap between the two of them is not high. And then Avengers Infinity War, which made $2 billion, which there's no universe where Fallen Kingdom grosses more than Infinity War at that point. But it's a boatload of money, but like you said, not as much as Jurassic World. It was never probably going to be as much as Jurassic World. You're surpassing the box office of the first film, especially after a long dormant period. It's almost never going to happen. Like it would be very unlikely, like in any universe, for something like Last Jedi to make more money than Force Awakens, just because Force Awakens had so much hype behind it. But like you said, the audiences were not as enthusiastic about this one. I think World, people were just really happy to see the franchise back. The story was very straightforward, gave you plenty of big dino action, gave you some interesting ripples to the whole ideas of the genetics. With Fallen Kingdom, definitely a mixed reception at the end of the day.
The movie's written by Derek Connolly and Colin Trevorrow, returning from the last movie. Now, on Jurassic World, they did extensive rewrites on an existing script. Here, they're writing the movie from the ground up, but unlike Jurassic World, Colin Trevorrow does not return as a director. Instead, we bring in J.A. Bayana. Now, I am not familiar with much of his filmography because most of it is not in the English language or released here in America, but I am familiar with his directorial debut, at least for a feature film, with The Orphanage. But again, the only reason I'm familiar with that is because Guillermo del Toro was very instrumental in bringing that to the States and promoting that movie and kind of putting his weight behind it, and it became sort of a cult hit in America, I guess you could say. So that one I'm familiar with. The others I'm not, but it looks like he's making his English language debut here with Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom.
That's actually not quite his American debut. That's the movie he does before this called A Monster Calls, which I actually think is probably a big part of why he ended up getting tapped for this. That's a very it's kind of what they call a dark fantasy film. A young boy is kind of dealing with his mother's terminal illness, and he's visited by this giant anthropomorphic tree voiced by Liam Neeson, who tells him stories. So it's a great kind of visual masterpiece. Really, actually, pretty great, interesting film. I don't think a lot of people saw it, but pretty stacked cast: Liam Neeson, Sigourney Weaver, Felicity Jones, Toby Kebbell.
Check that out.
And yeah, it's pretty good. Definitely a little heavy at times, but I definitely think that's part of what gets him in the discussion here. He does have an English language film before this, but it's still Spanish production. But yeah, starting to the Monster Calls, followed by Jurassic World, that puts him in the States. He's also done a few other things here and there. A couple episodes of a show I liked called Penny Dreadful, And then more recently, just did some episodes of Lord of the Rings of Power. And then still has a film coming up. So he's still out there doing his thing. But they were kind of interested in bringing in a new director for this one. Colin Trevorrow himself even kind of said that he felt like this was something that kind of opened itself up for different interpretations and different ideas, especially when it came to the directing piece of it. So, yeah, he gets the tap for this, and definitely, if you've seen things like The Orphanage, you can definitely see some scenes here where he's using some of that imagery and that atmosphere to his advantage.
Well, Andrew, I think without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump into this movie, specifically the positives and best parts of Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. You ready?
Yes.
On the island of Isla Nublar, an active volcano is threatening the lives of the dinosaurs that roam free in the ruins of the Jurassic World theme park. When the U.S. government decides not to intervene, a secret operation funded by Dr. John Hammond's former colleague, Sir Benjamin Lockwood, heads to the island to rescue as many species as possible. The team includes former Jurassic World director Claire Dearing, who uses her access to the facility's security to locate the dinosaurs on the island. However, it quickly becomes apparent that the dinosaurs are not simply being rescued, but captured with the intention of selling to the highest bidders around the world. Claire and her colleague Owen Grady are left on the island to die, but manage to escape on a boat transporting the animals. They arrive at the home of Sir Lockwood, where the auction is to take place unbeknownst to the owner due to the scheming of his aide, Eli Mills. Now, Claire and Owen must team up with Lockwood's granddaughter to rescue the animals before it's too late. There's a lot going on here, Andrew. There's a lot packed in.
I was gonna say.
I left some stuff out of there. I'm like, I gotta simplify this.
Yeah,
and it's funny because I was coming into this recording here thinking I enjoyed this movie. I'll say right now, like, I think I like it more than Jurassic World. At least I enjoyed watching it. I was more entertained, more thrilled by it. And one of the things I liked about it is it kind of reminded me of like Jurassic Park 3 compared to the original. It's like it's not trying to outdo that first one from a story perspective or emotional perspective. It's just like, you know what? We got dinosaurs. Let's do some cool action set pieces. And that's where I think this movie thrives. But when you dig into like what's really going on in the plot, I mean, you've got the volcano storyline, you've got the auction storyline, you've got the granddaughter, which is some late revelations going on here. You've got
yet another genetically altered dinosaur like being presented.
Yes.
Like there's so many different pieces that
and this
are
Sir
at play
Lockwood
here.
who like helped Dr. John Hammond develop this technology.
We're introduced to this like late stage dying man who just happened to also be involved with the creation of Jurassic Park. And like I get it, like it's definitely a role that if like Richard Attenborough was still alive, I'm sure they would have found some way to get him back involved again. And this is easily something that you could have seen him slotting into. Although I think him dying is a plot point in 2. I think that's the point there. But there is like 4 different plots going on in this movie of different things, and they do like intersect. Like that's not uncommon. But yeah, there is a lot happening in this movie.
There is. We're going to talk about it, the best parts, of course. But first things first, we got to talk about this cast, starting with the high point, the best casting and best performance of the film. Every episode, we recognize one person who goes above and beyond the call of duty. They actually elevate the quality of the entire film with their performance. See how fast I can get that down. We recognize that person by giving them the Mark Strong Award. So, Andrew, go ahead and kick us off here. Who is getting your Mark Strong Award for Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom?
I thought about this one long and hard because there's a couple of people I think that are in the running for this. But because, and I'm not doing this just because I think I know what yours is going to be, but I got to go with Ted Levine as one of our kind of pseudo primary villains. He plays a gentleman named Ken Wheatley, who is essentially the lead of the rescue operation on Isla Nublar. I hated him
I hate this guy
so much.
Yes.
He is awful. He is the worst person in the world, and this is the guy who played Buffalo Bill. Like it's
Oh, okay.
so terrible. Sorry, there's your little bit of trivia there for you. But
I the thing is, Andrew, you say that, and then I immediately picture him as Buffalo Bill, and it's weird. 'Cause a very specific image comes to mind.
yes, a very, very specific image. But yeah, I also just remember him from Monk, where he's about the polar opposite of both of these characters. But yeah, he's so deeply unlikable in this film, and it's I won't say it's a character that he hasn't played before to varying degrees. Ted Levine obviously being a big character actor, like obviously Buffalo Bill is just one of his more prominent things, but he's been working for decades. But his entire performance here, I loathed him the entire time. He is awful, and when he finally gets his just desserts at the end, I was just like, good. You deserve every single bit of this. It was cathartic. I was like, I'm rooting for the weird genetically enhanced raptor, but
Yeah,
I
open
don't
that
care.
cage. Walk in there.
Yeah,
He's
open that
asleep.
cage.
Don't
Walk in
worry.
there. This is gonna go just fine. Nothing's gonna happen to you, Ken, because you're a seasoned mercenary. Dummy. No, but yes. So, like I said, he recurs throughout most of the plots of this film. But yes, he does meet his unfortunate end, courtesy of the Indoraptor, who I'm sure we'll talk more about later. But yes, he is. There's a couple of different people that are doing good stuff here, but he's just so deeply unlikable that I had to go with him. Anybody that makes me hate them this much is doing their job and doing it well. So yes, Ted Levine as Ken Wheatley, getting my Mark Strong.
Going back to your roots with the Mark Strong Award, going with the villain. You love your villains.
I love my villains, man.
I agree. I hated this guy. I mean, he's doing a great job. I mean, that's you're right. Literally, like every scene, I'm like, I hate
you.
this guy. I'm gonna go a different direction with my Mark Strong Award. I'm going for someone that actually brings a lot of levity to this movie, and it totally works. Everything they do is working for me. I'm giving a Mark Strong Award to Justice Smith as Franklin Webb, who is a IT technician who's part of the group that sneaks back to the island to rescue these dinosaurs, helping him hack into security to find the dinosaurs. And then he continues to be part of the team, even though the IT stuff is done. And he's increasingly being put in situations that are well out of his wheelhouse and out of his depth, and has to try to blend in like these military militia guys. There's multiple times when he gets scared by a dinosaur and he shrieks like any of us would, but it's just hilarious watching it happen to someone else. It's really good. Justice Smith is one of those. I don't even know how old he is. I'm going to look right now. He's 27. I keep wanting to call him a kid. He plays a little bit younger, I think. But I also know him probably most prominently from Detective Pikachu, besides this movie, which some would say it's the greatest video game movie of all time. I don't think it's a crazy take. It's pretty good. So anyway, he's not a kid, but I just keep finding myself saying, like, man, he's going to have like a huge career ahead of him. And he's still young. This is all still very true, but it's not like he's a child actor. I just think he's just effortlessly charismatic and funny and likable in both the movies I've talked about here, Fallen Kingdom and Detective Pikachu. I just think there's big roles ahead. There's starring roles ahead for this guy. And yeah, I mean, someone who makes me laugh consistently throughout the movie. It's interesting because like, he is the comic relief of the movie. You would agree, right, Andrew? Like,
yeah, generally.
It's weird because Chris Pratt's in the movie. We talked about it last month. Chris Pratt's not doing his usual thing in these movies, but they're not asking him to. They're not asking Chris Pratt to be the driving force of the comedy. This time, this movie, it's Justice Smith, and I think he nails it and makes the movie better for it. You know, the true spirit of the Mark Strong Award. So gotta give the nod to Justice.
I can't disagree with that at all. I think it's a great pick. One of the like I said, the laughs I have in the movie. There's a joke he has. It's not really a joke. It's just a quip he makes. But he like gets on the helicopter where they're going to the island, and he's like terrified. And Chris Pratt says he says something, but Chris Pratt's like, "No, I just spend my time riding a motorcycle with raptors in the jungle." And Justice Smith just looks at him and goes, "We're not compatible." Like, that just, and I'm like, that's a thought that is a phrase that I have yearned to have in the past towards certain people that I've met, and I'm like, there it is, outlined perfectly.
Yeah.
But
let's not try to connect. Let's not try to be friends. This isn't.
You and I are
meant to
not
be-
people.
yeah.
Beyond
Not
this,
compatible.
there's going to be nothing. I actually remember him. I also remember Dr. Pikachu. He's also one of the voice motion capture likenesses in the recent supermassive game, The Quarry. I don't know if you've gotten to that one
okay.
yet.
I haven't played it yet. No.
But he is in that, playing way against type. He is not the funny, charismatic one in that at all. He's playing it far more stoic and serious, and he's still good at it. Obviously, just in a video CG form. Something about Supermassive and like Rami Malek being in Until Dawn. as one
My
of the
favorite
guys
Rami
there.
Malek performance.
Yeah,
it's
genuinely,
still my favorite.
I think he's great in that. But yeah, love The Quarry. Had great times there. I think he does a great job here too. And it works. It all works for me. I think he is doing a great job with it. He adds that levity because this can be a very sombering film at times. There's a lot of like just heavy things happening with throughout most of this movie. And so having some levity to add to that is just a good thing to have. And he does a great job at it.
Let's go ahead and talk about that lead, Chris Pratt, returning as Owen Grady. Obviously, we talked extensively about this character in the last movie. He returns mostly unchanged, except he doesn't have a job anymore, presumably. He's just working on building a cabin before he gets pulled back to the island. For both, I'm trying not to sound backhanded, but for both Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard, who we'll talk about in a moment, I think it's a step up for their characters. Their performances as actors, I don't think were ever the problem, but I think the characters, they're settling into them a little bit more. They're giving them a little bit more nuance. They're not so defined by the jobs. In fact, the driving force for Owen Grady throughout this movie is his connection and really love of the dinosaurs, specifically Blue. You get essentially flashbacks, but footage of him raising Blue and bonding with him and being, imprinting as its mother, and things that he talked about in the first movie, but we never really saw. We saw him like command the dinosaurs and obviously had a connection, but here it's more familial. It's more like a love. He's a little bit more open about it. He's closed off at first. He's like, I don't want to go back to that island. Let them die. It's what should happen. But once he does go back and sees Blue again, like there's a real connection there, and that's my favorite part about this character is like seeing that side of him, which again, oddly, we didn't see much of in the last one, but we see it this time around, and I think everyone's better for it.
I agree. Obviously, we talked about Chris Pratt last time, but yeah, I think he's being given a little bit more depth to the character here, being given a little bit more to work with. Which, the last one's very straightforward. It's a very singular set of events over the course of just a few hours. And here we pick up later, and they show the change. And maybe you'll see that cabin finished in the next one, Chris. You'll see.
What a tease. Okay.
Some classic woodworking action from your Jurassic World movies, folks.
It's the post-credit scenes in the next one. It's like 3 seconds. By the way, I finished the cabin. Done. Bryce Dallas Howard also returning as the character of Claire. Now, this is my most improved award. Again, not for Bryce Dallas Howard's skills as an actor, but for the character. I love this character so much more this time around because, again, she's not defined by her job, which I had some serious problems with in the last movie. I like that she clearly has a very strong passion and work ethic, but now it's being channeled towards helping the dinosaurs with this sort of like grassroots organization that she's running to try to save these dinosaurs. And then she's willing to risk her life and go back to the island to try and save them. And again, defining these characters by their love of animals, it makes them a lot more relatable than they were last time. And her hair looks a lot better. They don't have that awful haircut on her. And she just, again, just relaxes into the role, just gets to be more comfortable, more relatable, more human. Again, cannot stress enough how much more I like the character of Claire in this movie.
I agree. And again, it's just the script is giving them more depth. It's giving them a chance to move beyond kind of their static representations in Jurassic World. And like you said, the movie is better for it. She's basically the head of essentially a nonprofit that's about saving the dinosaurs. We will drive right past that Jurassic World was built on an island with an active volcano. We're not stopping at all for that. But yeah, I like that ripple to the character. It makes sense, a logical step. In the first movie, she's kind of forced to see these things as more than, a business, essentially. And in this movie, she's trying to live that and try to watch out for them and try to be their protector because now they don't have one. And she does a great job there. So she's definitely stepping up. She's definitely got a lot more to work with here, and she makes the most out of every single opportunity.
And just to kind of round out our team of good guys, our core team that we follow throughout the movie, we have Daniela Pineda playing Zaya Rodriguez, who is essentially the doctor that they bring on board. Dinosaur doctor. I don't know how that works, but she's able to take care of the dinosaurs because they expect to come across some injured ones and make sure they get to where they're supposed to be going safely. And I really like this character. I love the whole group that we get to follow here. I love her dynamics with Justice Smith's character, or Franklin. And she does not put up with anybody's crap, whether it's like the militia people or people on her own team. I mean, she is just always ready to fire back, and I love her for that. And I really enjoyed this performance. The newcomers in this movie, I mean, really good supporting cast this time around.
I agree. Yeah, the small characters are all memorable. They stand out. Justice and Daniela specifically they're making the most of every bit of screen time they have. I do like this character a lot. She's the paleo veterinarian of the organization, which name escapes me. But I just saw her actually in another film. She was in the Gerard Butler film Plane.
I can't believe the movie is just called Plane. I really can't get over that.
I'm going to tell you guys a story. Hashtag people. When I first saw the trailer for this, it was going through, and it's definitely a trailer where like it tells you everything that you're going to know about. There's no secrets being kept from this. But the minute it gets to the end and it just flashed up the word plane, I was mad. I was like upset. I was like, you put me through 2.5 minutes of Gerard Butler's latest thing to call the movie Plane. That title sure is generic. But I kind of was like, and then I saw it like anytime I went to the movies, I saw a trailer for Plane, and I saw a trailer for Plane, and I just saw Gerard Butler and Mike Coulter, and I was just like, oh my, when does this movie come out? When am I finally going to be free of this trailer? It was kind of like the trailer for Morbius. I saw the trailer for Morbius for what felt like 8 years. Turns out it was only 2. But so my friend was like, hey, Lionsgate sometimes wants me to review their stuff, so I'm going to go watch Plane. Do you want to go check it out? And I was like, fine, we'll go watch Plane. And then I'm watching Plane, and I get to the end of Plane, and I'm like, dang it. Why was that entertaining?
It's good. You'd recommend it?
Yeah, it's like, don't get me wrong. Like I said, if you've seen the trailer for Plane, you know what that movie is about completely. But the action scenes are well shot. There's actually like an extended fight that Gerard Butler has with one guy that's single shotted. I was surprised because these movies tend to like 47 shots in 8 seconds, and It's Mike Coulter, obviously elevating things up a lot there, but then she plays one of the flight attendants who ends up in the mix with the kind of a local, I don't know what you call them, but they land on an island run by a militia, essentially. She runs in with them, but yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. But she's got a prominent role in that where she also does a great job. So yes, don't let the title fool you. Plane is anything but.
They've got to keep it going. They got to be a sequel. Like his transport, crashes, and it's called Bus. Or
they missed out
boat.
not just calling Speed Bus. They should have just. They could have called the sequel Boat. It was right there for them. They just messed it up for
bus
themselves.
that couldn't slow down.
But yes, looping back to the point here. She does do a great job. I like what she's doing here a lot. She's a great character. She has a brief reprise in Dominion, but unfortunately, due to the travel restrictions, she was unable to appear in future scenes. But a fun addition to the cast of these films.
Speaking of villains, I think it's safe to say our lead villain in this movie is Eli, played by Rafe Spall. Interesting, Rafe, and it's spelled R-A-F-E. It's spelled just like it sounds. Weird way to spell Rafe. Straightforward.
It's clearly wrong. But an alum of the show, if you will.
Is he?
Men in Black International.
Oh, is he the dorky guy?
He's Agent C.
Oh man, he is Agency. Look at that. Oh, is that a pun? Agency? Anyway, he yeah, I did not even recognize him. Looking at you can go through his filmography, I didn't realize. Yeah, look at that. Alum of the show, indeed. I loved him in that movie. And look, he's good here. He's the guy that knows. He knows how to play his part in the ensemble. Yeah. Like Men in Black International. It's not the sexy character, right? It's the super nerdy character, stick up the rear type character, and he plays it to a T. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, he's the bad guy, he's smarmy, he's scheming, he is lying to people's faces, gets his hands dirty, and I did not see that scene coming where he freaking murders Mr. Lockwood, but yeah, he plays it well. You don't like him, just like your Mark Strong Award winner, Andrew here. Like I don't like this guy in any scene that he's, even before the turn, even when he's presenting himself as like, oh, I want to save these animals and take them to this. I'm
doing what I have to do, like that whole thing.
I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. He's a sleazeball, which means Rafe is a good actor.
He is. Like, I like Rafe a lot. He had some brief and small appearances in a lot of Edgar Wright's early films. He was one of the kind of street punks in Shaun of the Dead, plays one of the Andys in Hot Fuzz, who were possibly my two favorite characters in that whole movie. And then also was a featured ghost in Edgar Wright's Grindhouse segment, Don't. Because,
yeah,
the pinnacle of Edgar Wright's career. And then he's said bit stuff over the years. Prometheus showed up again briefly in World's End. I like him a lot. I think he does. I think he's always. I'm never sad to see him on my screen, especially when he's doing something funny. But yeah, had some brief forays into Hollywood. Did this, and then Men in Black International is technically the year after this. But yeah, you this guy's up to no good from day one. There's no question. There's no mystery. It's not a twist. It's a reassurance of what you already knew. And he plays it all to a T. He is basically in charge of this evacuation. Lockwood is kind of entrusted in this, and Lockwood realizes that was a mistake. But he essentially has his own nefarious plans here to use the dinosaurs to, I guess in his mind, he's very justified because the money he's making from selling the dinosaurs is keeping the company alive, essentially. That's his mindset. But he's also giving dinosaurs to very dangerous people, which is the bad thing. And in the background of all of this is this new dinosaur that he's created. And it is a great performance. He, like I said, he knows his part. He's playing it to a T, and I'm never sad to see Rafe on my screen.
James Cromwell plays Sir Benjamin Lockwood. This is Dr. Hammond's, again, a former colleague. They worked together at one point developing this technology. They had a falling out. That's why we never heard of this guy till now. But as you said, it's almost like he's kind of filling in for where John Hammond probably you could see being in this story. And I don't know if there's much to say about James Cromwell. Great character actor. You've seen him in a million things. Very distinct and recognizable look and face and voice. The Warden in Green Mile is probably the first thing that comes to mind when I think of him. But he's been in like 10 movies. I don't even, realize off the top of your head. He's just been in everything. Been at it for decades. So, legend of the screen. It's nice to see him here, even if his limited screen time. He is dying. He's in bed for almost all of his scenes. But yeah, good
dare
stuff.
I say, adding a little bit of that. What would you call it, Chris?
Gravitas. But there's someone else in this cast that I think is sole purpose to add some gravitas. But
oh, that's true. We'll get to
James,
that. We'll get
James
to that.
is definitely bringing it.
James Cromwell, yeah, he's great. I remember him from a little movie called Murder by Death, which is actually, I think, the first film he was ever in, which is like a murder mystery comedy starring a great deal of people you've heard of.
Murder by Death. I hope it's a comedy.
It is. It's a little problematic. Peter Sellers plays a... let me rephrase that. It's a lot problematic because Peter Sellers plays an Asian man.
Oh, boy.
Oh, dear. Yes, but it's got Peter Sellers, David Niven, Maggie Smith, Peter Falk kind of playing a version of Columbo, but done as more Sam Spade. Like, it's genuinely... There's a lot of Clue DNA in Murder by Death. There's just an unfortunately a very problematic performance at the center of it. A thing that would definitely not be done today for the right reasons. But otherwise, he's been all over the place. I actually remember him from Star Trek First Contact, where he plays a character named Zephyr Cochrane, who's the person who invents warp drive, the thing that all of the starships use in Star Trek. But everywhere. Babe, Pig in the City. Like, you've seen James Cromwell in something. And actually... this movie, even though I don't think they're ever on screen together, is reuniting Bryce Dallas Howard and James Cromwell as they were both in Spider-Man 3.
They were. He was her dad? Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, I think there's one scene. I think when she first walks there and he's in the wheelchair and she's the daughter upstairs. So I think they have one scene together. So yeah,
so a fun little reunion there for all you Spider-Man 3 stands out there.
The wonderful Toby Jones is in this movie as Mr. Eversole. Man, I love Toby Jones. I say this
all
about
gravitas.
A lot of people.
No, nothing else.
I love him anytime he shows up in a movie.
Yeah.
The first thing I can think of that I saw him in was probably The Mist. And he is so endearing in that movie. He's such like a sweet little guy, and his whole character arc builds up to like this badass moment for this unassuming like grocery store employee. It's great. I love that performance. And then almost everything I see him in after that, he's like total bad guy. He's a Nazi in Captain America and kind of returns as the voice role for the sequel. He's definitely a bad guy here, but he plays it so well, both ends of the spectrum. Either he uses his small stature to like gain empathy or to be like, I don't know, somehow make it intimidating. He kind of reminds me of like Brain from Pinky and the Brain, which I know is like a George Orwell thing, but something about I don't know, evil genius. What is he doing with a small stature when he plays a villain, Andrew? How is he weaponizing that? How would you word that?
He's Napoleoning it. Napoleoning it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like he's unassuming by default, and so he uses that to catch you off guard. I think by being these bombastic villains, or even these conniving villains, it's it's catching you off guard because
He's
you're not
so
seeing that there.
pompous in this movie. He's
Oh,
so
absolutely.
like he's like, you're not worth my
It's like-
time. This isn't what we
like
asked for. Millions of
definition of
dollars, please.
corporate-
Like,
Yeah, corporate. I can't say the word. But Toby Jones is just. I mean, he's fantastic in everything he's in. Obviously, MCU fans know him as the dude with the thing, Arnim Zola. He's actually in this movie I really, really like called Barbarian Sound Studio, which is a psychological horror film where he's brought in to do audio for what he believes is a documentary about horses, but finds out actually that it's a horror film. And as he's seeing these scenes that he needs to add sound effects to, he begins to grow concerned that what he's watching isn't fake. And it's very interesting. It's hard to get a hold of. I don't think it's available on most platforms, but he's actually the protagonist of that. So if you especially want to change of pace where he's not the villain, I definitely suggest checking that out, but also just very, very strange. But, he's shown up all over the place. He was in some of the Hunger Games films. He was in The Adventures of Tintin, the computer animated film they made based off that, which I've said is very underrated.
great movie, yeah.
He's been all over the place. And will also be seen in the upcoming Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. So still out there doing his thing.
BD Wong, of course, returns. Mark Strong Award winner BD Wong as Dr. Henry Wu. And not to sell the guy short, because he's great. We praised him a ton last episode. He's doing the same thing. They don't overuse their Henry Wu in World or this movie. He's in there just enough to be a prominent role, a recognizable face, and give us what we're looking for from BD Wong. Just a few key scenes, but it's great. He's great at what he does. I always love seeing him show up. I love this character. I love the shades to this character where he is clearly a bad guy doing bad things, but he doesn't see it that way. It's good stuff.
It is. I like a lot what he's doing here. But like I said, they keep it thin. This one, as well as our other big OG cameo, they're both very sparingly used. Which cannot be said for Dominion. But that's a different story. In Dominion, they're right front and center. But here, they're still playing it pretty fast and loose. I think kind of building up to that third part. But I definitely like I said, never sad to see BD Wong on my screen. And they're adding and playing in those same kind of ripples of the character that they did last time around.
We have Isabella Sermon playing Maisie Lockwood, who is Sir Lockwood's granddaughter. And there's a bit of a secret to this character. I guess we can say it. There's no point in trying to avoid spoilers, but she's a clone of his daughter. We learn late in this movie, and that's apparently why Sir Lockwood had a falling out with Dr. Hammond. That was a wild place. I didn't think this movie was gonna go. But
it's so nonchalantly stated too. It's literally in the last 10 minutes of the movie. It's a very late stage revelation, and it's just, yeah. I guess John Hammond was only clone dinosaurs, no humans, and Lockwood was like, watch me. But
I will say this about the script. I hashtag PP. We're here for the positives.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the next movie. I don't know. I don't know why this twist is here. I don't know what we're supposed to feel about it, how it affects things. I don't know. But whenever it is revealed, I mean, I didn't see it coming because it's wow, it's bonkers. But they do set it up throughout the entire movie. They talk a lot about how she looks just like her mom, who died in a car accident. She never met her. The way they talk about her, the way that the housekeeper says, "I raised both of them," the way she say it. There's clues throughout the movie that I didn't pick up on until after the revelation. But it's it's always nice to see the little breadcrumbs, even if it's not until after the revelation that I realized that they were there. So it's
those are the best kind of breadcrumbs, man. It's the ones that are right in front of you, but you don't notice, because then you realize in the end, it's no one's fault but yours that you didn't guess it.
I'm a dummy for not knowing she was a clone.
Every time I read an Agatha Christie novel, I'm just like, Andrew, you dolt. Yeah, so this is a good form. She does return for Dominion, and they definitely... There's more to that story, is all I'll say. It is picked up on. They don't just kind of leave that hang. But yeah, it's an interesting performance here. She's a big part of our final act, as we're kind of stuck in the house with the Indoraptor. Have we even talked about the Indoraptor? That'll be later. But who plays the Indoraptor, Chris? Jeff's computer plays the Indoraptor. But yeah, it's an interesting performance, like you said. There's a lot of layers going on there, but overall, this is something they will build on. I'll leave it at that.
Andrew, I mentioned the housekeeper, which it's not a very prominent role. It's not usually the type of role we bring up while we're going through the cast here. Few key scenes. She's a sweet older lady. I'm bringing her up now because I just saw that she's played by Geraldine Chaplin, the daughter of Charlie Chaplin. That's Charlie Chaplin's daughter. That's crazy. For whatever reason, Andrew, I mean, saw in the movie, she's old, but like, I feel like it should be like Charlie Chaplin's great grandchild or great, like I feel like it was so long ago, but
he really wasn't.
Remembers that up. It makes sense, but yeah, that's cool. I mean, fun
he
fact.
died in 1977 and he was 88. So, and she was born in 44. So, I mean, that's.
He died in 1977.
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yeah, that's breaking your brain, isn't it? Like,
why did I think he died in like the 30s? That's so weird. Yeah,
because it's such a weird thing to think about. It's weird to think that like there was it's so strange when you see those people and then you like Charlie Chaplin is somebody who had this period of time where like nobody cared about Charlie Chaplin. And it's so weird to think about that, like this monumental guy that's so integral to like film could just kind of fall out of favor so easily. Like it's again, just kind of an indictment of that studio system where just like, well, none of their stuff in the last 2 years has been a success. So we're letting you go. It's like, very much what have you done for me lately type stuff. And yeah, it's very strange to think about. But yes, she actually, in an interesting twist, played her grandmother in the film Chaplin in the 90s, the one that starred Robert Downey Jr., Dan Aykroyd, and a couple of others. But she played Chaplin's mother in that film and actually got nominated for a Golden Globe for it. So it's got to be a cool little feeling to play your own relative and be so good at it that you get nominated for an award. Although I guess who knows better than you?
Lastly, we have Jeff Goldblum returning as Dr. Ian Malcolm. Again, not in the movie a lot, really just the beginning and end, bookending this movie with his narration, essentially. We have some shots of him talking to the Senate there, but it's mostly the voiceover as we see some other stuff happening. And it's, man, if you can get Jeff Goldblum, you want him to narrate, right? You want him to speak on in. It's a good way to bookend your movie, start it, end it. It's bringing that gravitas to the film as only he can do. I will say, I mean, it's great. It's Jeff Goldblum. We've praised him a ton already this month, but like, it's not. What am I trying to say here? Remember when we talked about League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and I was like, okay, by this point in Sean Connery's career, he's playing this up. He knows what people want to hear from him. Jeff Goldblum sounds a little reserved in this. He's not doing inflections and the extra filler words in between. It's very much.
When considering this, yeah, right.
It's much more straightforward than I expected, but very well done.
Yeah, it's interesting because you could see it as kind of being a little bit. I think they're playing it pretty close to how he is in kind of Lost World, and just like where would that character kind of go, and I think that's where it would be. He does come back again in Dominion. Definitely more screen time there. And we'll talk about that at the time, but here genuinely, I mean, this is this is literally what it's a cameo from all perspectives. This is nothing more than I guarantee you he was probably on set for 3 hours, and probably got paid 6 figures for it, if not more. But nice work if you can get it. But
yeah, good gig.
yeah. But yeah, it's Jeff Goldblum. I mean, he's there. He's adding, I guess you could say, some legitimacy, maybe. Bringing back some of those OG actors beyond BD Wong, who, as we love BD Wong, but as we established in Jurassic Park, he's nobody.
Right.
He's somebody that was nobody, became somebody. So they're like, well, let's make that character important now. And so the movie's all the better for it. Like I said, get an interesting little opening and closing. Jeff Goldblum says the words Jurassic World so that we can all Leo point at the screen. Does not say Fallen Kingdom, so it doesn't quite go all the way there. But yeah, it's Jeff Goldblum. What more can you say?
Well, Andrew, let's jump into the scenes of this movie, starting with our favorite scene, the best scene of the movie. In your opinion, Andrew, when is this movie firing on all cylinders? What is your favorite scene of Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom? Would this be the first subtitled movie in this franchise? Is The Lost World Jurassic Park? Is that a subtitled title? Because the subtitle would be like the title of the franchise.
I mean, it's a subtitle.
It should have been Jurassic Park:
The Lost World. But I would say that The Lost World Jurassic Park is a subtitled movie, just strangely subtitled. Like, it's Jurassic Park is technically the subtitle of that. Like, the subtitle is telling you what franchise it is from. It's so weird. Like, it's like a weird proto version of like Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. Like, we put the new title in front and then we subtitle the franchise at the end of it. And it's like, no, we're smart enough. We can figure it out. I promise you we can figure it out.
Like The Dark Knight, Batman Continues.
Yeah, like The Dark Knight, Batman. Yeah, or just like go back to those Long Halloween titles. But it's Long Halloween, Batman now. Yeah, I guess you're technically right though. This is the first properly subtitled Jurassic film. I am going to go with a scene that definitely to me was Fiona invoking some of his horror roots. And I'm going with the Indoraptor kind of stalking Claire, Maisie, and Owen throughout this giant gothic mansion. Just because I think this movie just randomly turns into a slasher film for those like 20 minutes.
It does.
Where, like,
it really does.
It's like this strange because they play the Indoraptor and this gives me a chance to talk about the Indoraptor. They play the Indoraptor very similarly to the Indominus Rex, which is obviously on purpose because the subplot of this movie is the Indoraptor is the two most dangerous animals on the planet, the Indominus Rex and the Velociraptor. Folks, don't think any further into that. So as such, they're keeping it out of sight because we actually kind of don't know that it's a thing or that it already exists. Like, we obviously know they're planning something because that's the first scene of this movie. But we don't know that it already is there. And so there's a couple of scenes where they're definitely pulling some like almost Nightmare on Elm Street-esque, like Maisie's down in this weird basement where they've got all these cages for the dinosaurs. And she's like backing up towards this wall and you see this like giant Freddy Krueger-esque raptor claw like come out towards her out of the darkness, out of nothing, and then like fades back and the chick sees it and freaks out. But
I remember that shot from the trailer.
Yes.
And I assumed it was a dream sequence. The way the dinosaur is doing it so slowly and intentionally, I thought of someone having a nightmare, but no, this thing's just freaky.
No, it's just you watching the movie, man. But no, and so I like that teases we kind of get, and even when they're finally revealing it, like they've got a bright light behind it, you still can't see it. Like they're still playing very, very coy with it. They don't want you to know what this thing looks like for some reason. And they finally reveal it. Looks like a smaller Indominus Rex. which is, perfectly scary. But black skin instead of white skin, but same kind of like feather points on it, same kind of ideas there, and some nasty looking teeth. But basically, it gets introduced. Our boy Ken Wheatley gets in there to try to take one of its teeth because that's one of the things he does that makes you hate him. He takes a tooth from every dinosaur he kidnaps. What a prick! My God. But you've already kidnapped these poor creatures. Now you're ripping their teeth out, you jerk. But the Indominus plays dead. It's actually, or the Indoraptor, sorry, plays dead. It actually tricks him. I think this was an interesting thing, that little ripple to that I liked, is that this thing like knows that he thinks he's knocked out. So he like lays down. They literally, with the Indoraptor, do the scene where he like opens his eye and looks up for a second and then lays back down. Like they literally did that, like that cartoon thing where like somebody's faking being asleep. And
while it is like a cartoon thing, and it is, especially like it raises its tail, then it lowers it as he looks back. But it's also a smart way to show that this thing is intelligent. It knows to play dead, so he sets his guard down. Right.
And then he brutally kills Ken Wheatley. But then this leads to him having this extended chase with Owen, Claire, and Maisie throughout this mansion. A lot of really almost Frankenstein-esque imagery. I think I assume that's got to be on purpose, like where you got like the lightning coming down, silhouetting the Indoraptor, stuff like that. I feel like that all has to be on purpose. Just again, Frankenstein is the scientist, not the monster. Dr. Indoraptor. But I like all of this. Like I said, you're definitely getting some of the horror roots. There's definitely some stuff played for scares here. There's definitely stuff that's supposed to be creepy, like the stalking and things like that. This does eventually devolve a bit into some dino action. We get Blue getting in on the action here, fighting the Indoraptor. Blue just notching those wins, fighting the Indominus, fighting the Indoraptor, like just
dude is fearless, not afraid to be the underdog. We'll take on.
No, not at all. They make the
Raptors
comes out
victorious again.
Somehow.
Raptor PR team are just, they got their hands all over this franchise.
Big W. But so ultimately that gives us a big fight on top of this kind of greenhouse where eventually they both kind of crash through, and the Indoraptor, gets impaled on this kind of Triceratops skeleton. But just a cool sequence, very different. It's the kind of stuff that like I like to see. Like I said, the director using some of those horror roots to really kind of build atmosphere. This is definitely the kind of mansion to do it in. Like I said, using a lot of that kind of gothic horror imagery from Frankenstein, stuff like that. And it's just, I like it. It stands out to me. It's vivid things that I remember from the film. Ones that don't make me cry on the inside, like I'm sure we'll talk about later. But not in a bad way, folks, just because they make me feel bad. But this is where it's hitting for me. I like everything that's about this sequence. I think it's genuinely, there's creative direction being shown here. And we're seeing again that this Indoraptor is different. You're kind of like, oh, well, what makes this stand out? And it's this kind of almost quick-witted intelligence. Like this intelligence, not just that it's smart and can figure things out, but that it can like piece things together in real time. And basically is like almost on par with human intelligence in a way. Which again, just kind of building into that idea. What was it, Jurassic Park 2 or 3, where they were kind of saying, if raptors had not gone extinct, they may have become the dominant species on the planet. I
think it was Alan Grant's speech at the beginning of 3 that he was giving to that class. So
interesting stuff.
Even as something as simple as there's a moment where they're hiding from it, and they're doing that thing you see in a lot of movies where they duck down behind this. Well, in this case, Triceratops skull, and they're on one side of it, the raptor's on the other. As the raptor turns a corner, they turn the opposite corner and they kind of go around in a circle. We've seen it a million times.
Yep.
But the raptor just climbs on top of the skull so it can see all around. Something so simple as like, I'm not going to just walk around at a predictable path. I'm going to get a higher area and see where you are. the dumb little trick that would work in any other movie does not work here. So something as small as that like shows that this thing is different. It's intelligent. And that scene is not only just a great tension building scene, but it's establishing the geography of this building that we're in. It's establishing that you have this Triceratops skull underneath this giant skylight. So when we get to the finale and the raptor falls through the skylight, we know it's going to get impaled on the Triceratops. Otherwise, if that was the first time we saw the Triceratops, we'd be like, oh, that's just, lucky that it's there. But it was established already by the screenplay that it was there. And that is good writing, folks. And I think this is great. This is definitely the most, a recurring theme as we go through this month is like, well, what is this dinosaur movie doing different that we haven't seen from the other ones?
Yes, exactly.
And usually it's like the first movie, you're at an amusement park. The sequels, it's dinosaurs in the woods. That's kind of what we've been getting over and over again. Even in this movie, we get dinosaurs in the wilderness in the beginning. But to have this big dinosaur set piece in a mansion of all places, like this is so different than anything we've seen before. It's different than the city even that we saw in The Lost World. So it's great. Got to give kudos to giving us something different this deep into the franchise. Andrew, it's a great pick for favorite scene. I'm going to go with a different one. I know, heartbroken. But I believe it or not, Andrew, I'm going right back to that gyro ball that I gave my favorite scene in the last one. The gyro ball comes back. We're already nostalgic for that ball we saw 3 years ago. They got another action set piece based around it. And the way, again, I love these set pieces where they just build and build and build and evolve and evolve and evolve to where you're like, it's almost like you're holding your breath by the end of it because it's gotten so tense. So it starts with like this big like stampede out of the forest as this volcano's erupting, as lava's falling all around them, as they're trying not to get trampled. And they all hide by this log, and the log is destroyed. So all that's left is this old gyro ball from the park. So 2 of them are able to get inside the gyro ball, but Owen Grady is not, as Dinosaur comes up and tries to attack him. Of course, the dinosaur hits the ball, sends it rolling down the cliff. Owen just has to run. He gets engulfed in all the ash. The ball goes off the cliff, it falls in the water, and it starts sinking. And now we've got 2 characters, which is Justice Smith and Bryce Dallas Howard, in the gyro ball as it's going underwater. We have a new problem now. And of course, it starts taking in water through the cracks. And then we see that Owen lived. He dove into the water. He's trying to get them out. He's got a gun. He can save them. He shoots a few holes. All that does is put more water into the gyro ball. This dude's got to breathe. He swims to the surface. They're drowning. Like it ramps it up and it lasts so long.
Yep.
In a way it gets right to the edge of like how are they gonna get out of this? Oh my god, they're gonna die. I know they're not gonna die because the heroes in the movie, but it gets you as close to that feeling as you can. And I love a movie that can successfully pull that off. It's a thrilling action scene. There's not much to say about it beyond that, really. It's thrilling. I could continue to walk you through the events of the scene, but if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. And I think it was the most successful scene in the movie, building that type of tension.
This is a great pick. Like you said, the gyro balls. We're just nostalgic for those big Jurassic World balls again. But yeah, this creates a great sense of tension. Like I said, nothing's going to happen to these people, but the fact that they can make you believe even for a second is effective. It means that they're effectively doing their job and they're making sure that, this is going to, we're going to have that sense of doubt, and it makes the scene have so much more tension and it makes it stand out so much more. So can't fault you for picking this one.
Thanks, Andrew. I'm glad I got your approval. There's a lot of good stuff on this island scene. So again, all I really knew about the movie, and I think all that was really in the trailers, was this plot line of the volcano going off. Yeah. And honestly, I checked the time. I think they're on the boat leaving the island at 47 minutes into the movie. It's less than half, and this entire thing is resolved. But it makes for a very strong driving force for the first roughly half of the movie. And I think all the lava action scenes are hitting for me. Even something as contrived as Owen Grady gets hit with the tranquilizer, and when he comes to, the lava is like encroaching on him. And I thought this was going to be the moment where they let Chris Pratt like go full Chris Pratt. Like he's getting control of his limbs and dragging himself away. But he does it kind of like it's kind of funny looking, but it's mostly like a realistic way. It's not too goofy. He's not making silly noises. He's not drooling. They're not like going for hard comedy here.
He's not.
They're
He's
still,
not.
like-
He's not Leo from Wolf of Wall Street. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I almost sent you that GIF, and I was like, Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom out of context, and it was going to be that GIF of Leo from Wolf of Wall Street. But
Instead they're still going for like the more straightforward action scene out of it, even though it is a little funny. But that was good. And then the scene that leads to him getting tranked, I gotta say they boomed me here. They're trying to catch Blue. And, of course, Owen's in charge. He's talking to him, and he's, tell you guys to stand down. And then they don't listen to him. They shoot Blue. Blue attacks. She jumps on a guy. And I'm like, how dumb is this military? You're supposed to be there to, like, help these dinosaurs. They don't listen to the expert. They shoot him. They make him aggressive. And then it's in that scene you realize, oh, they're not dumb. They're just assholes. These are the bad guys. Of course they don't give a crap about the well-being of people. And again, for a moment, I was like, oh, man, this is kind of weak writing here. The driving force of the plot's going to be dumb guys with guns. But no, they're just jerks. They're just bad guys. They boomed me. They got me. But that reveal was pretty well done.
Had Levine's little as he like just blows at Chris Pratt and he falls over. I was like, I hate you more.
Yeah.
No, these sequences, just all of it's just so, like you said, they boom you. But you have a bad feeling about these guys from pretty much the beginning. Like there is never a moment with Ted Levine's character where you're like, maybe he's okay. Like he's bad from day one. But at the end of the day, it's all about money for him. But and his trophies. But
even
that
on
scene,
like on that the ride over where you said he's like Justice Smith has that line, we're not compatible. Also on that ride over, Justice Smith is like spraying himself down with bug spray, like layers and layers, and then he offers it to the military guys. Bug spray. Bug spray.
It's Justice Smith is really good in it. But it is that whole island sequence. So I'll talk about the scene that destroys me on the inside. So they get a lot of the animals out, including Rexy, who is the T-Rex from the first film, who is our savior at the end of Jurassic World, who is also the T-Rex in this film. Like you said, it's something about the scars or something in particular it's all implied that this is the same T-Rex. T-Rexes, I was looking at the Wikipedia. I think they can live. The biggest one they've ever found, I think, was 29 when it died. So T-Rexes can go for a while. But obviously these are genetically enhanced, though, so they've probably got longer lifespans. But they get a bunch of them, but one of the ones, so the last image of them leaving this island before it's engulfed in lava and ash is there is a Brontosaurus. Also, if you guys don't know this, Brontosaurus translates to thunder lizard, which is dope.
That's pretty cool.
Which is why it was so upsetting when they thought they weren't a thing for a while, and then they found out that they were incorrect and they are a thing. But
are you sure they didn't just like see people's reaction? Like, oh, actually, the Brontosaurus, we mixed up some fossils. It's not a real thing. People are like, no, it's my favorite dinosaur. Like, oh, wait. Oh, look, I misread it. They're real. Don't worry, guys. They were real. Long necks totally existed.
I mean, long necks still exist. They're just not called that. But I don't know. Maybe. Who knows? I'm not a paleo veterinarian. I don't know. But the last image we get of this island, basically, is it's being engulfed by lava and smoke and ash. There is a long neck that is like on the shore, on the dock, like calling out to these people. And all they can do is basically, as they're like drifting away on these boats, is watch this thing die, essentially. Chris, I'm sad.
Dude, it's rough. It's
It
rough.
is rough. It is
I
so rough.
I like it though. I like that it's here because the whole plot of this opening thing is that like this volcano is going to erupt, it's going to kill these dinosaurs. Let's try to save them. That's the plot. And if they didn't have this scene to acknowledge that, it'd be such a cop out. It'd be such like, the whole plot was we don't want them to die. Oh, a lot of them die off screen, but the we've got a movie to do here, so we're going to keep going with the action. So I kind of like that it shows us this. And of course it uses a long neck. This is the majestic dinosaur of this franchise. It's the one that everyone gawks at its beauty. It's the
first one that Alan Grant ever sees. Now, the key here, folks, is that this one that we watch die, the director says it's supposed to be the one that Alan Grant sees in Jurassic Park.
See, now why you got to do that to me?
That is what
Mr. Director, Mr. J.A. That you don't gotta put salt in the wound there. Come on, it's sad enough as it is. Don't try to connect it to this other memory I have of the franchise. You jerk.
We are all barely hanging on. The existential crises for everyone are like deep in at this point. We are all barely existing. And you have to go and not just rip my heart out, but rip my spine out at the same time. And I'm left with nothing. Understand what you've done, director.
See that dinosaur dying? It's sad? Well, guess what? That's your fucking childhood.
Oh, no. Chris, I'm sad.
They know what they're doing using the long neck, though. It's always Jurassic World.
Even if you didn't draw that direct line,
right?
The illusion is clearly supposed to be there. The first dinosaur on this island is a long neck. The last one you see on this island is a long neck. Even if it wasn't meant to be the same one, that circular imagery is absolutely on purpose. There is no way that was an accident. Like I said, the director, it's not explicitly stated in the film that it's the same one. The director said that kind of after the fact, but the imagery is there. And in that regard, it does make sense.
What if, like, to really draw the line, as it's calling for help, it goes, Alan!
That only happened in a dream. Alan, help. Alan, please. Alan, where are you?
It's sad. It hits. I like that in the movie, we've got the good guys, the bad guys on the boat, all of them stop what they're doing, looking back at the island, and they're clearly taking it in and reflecting, and they're sad, and it kind of unites them all in a way. And again, it's sad, it's tough to watch, but I'm glad the movie makes it a point to put it in there. It's a bummer, but it's an important part of the story.
Indeed it is, Christopher. Indeed it is.
They manage, something that's really impressive here is we got a pretty good chunk in the movie on the boat, and they managed to get like more thrilling action scenes out of this. They've got Blue, who's been shot and is losing blood. He's got to do a blood transfusion. Of course, the T-Rex is who they got to get the blood from, and the T-Rex is sedated, but they got to sneak into his cage that he's being held, draw his blood, her blood. All the dinosaurs are female. Draw her blood as they are waking up, and it's great. It's thrilling. It starts thrashing its head, and Owen Grady literally like dives through its open mouth to get out. It was awesome. I was very impressed that they managed to get that much action out of this, confined area of dinosaurs asleep on a boat, basically.
Yeah, it's actually really impressive. But at the same time, like I get it, and I think that's again almost going back to horror roots, because isolation and enclosed spaces can be so thrilling. And when you start adding in like dinosaurs and these terrifying giant creatures in confined spaces, it doesn't shock me that you can get tension out of that. That's definitely something that, like, if you're in a tiny space with a T-Rex and that T-Rex starts waking up, lunchtime, dude, there's nothing you're going to be able to do about that. But it is impressive. And
Dude, speaking of horror shots, though, how about that scene back on the island with Bryce Dallas Howard and Justice Smith in the control room? And
that thing comes out of the tunnel. My God.
Yes, and it's backlit by the lava falling behind it. So every now and then you get this flash of light, and the dinosaur's a little bit closer every time. Holy cow! And then they're locked in this room with a dinosaur. Like, all right, that's it. They're dead. Like, lava's pouring in. Like another one of those times, and they just throw everything at these characters. And of course, they managed to get away through the escape hatch. But holy cow, that was again, a dinosaur just kind of becomes a stalker. That backlighting thing, though, is so terrifying because they use it in the very beginning of this movie when that team is extracting the Indominus Rex bone. And then you see a shot of the submarine and lightning strike, and you see the silhouette. Oh my God, that is a scary image. Something that large should not be swimming around. Giant. It's terrifying.
Did you see they just found a beer bottle at the lowest point in the ocean we've explored?
What? No, I did not see
35,000 feet down. I forget exactly what the space is called. There's, of course, a name for it. There's a little glass beer bottle down there. I don't know how it got there, but...
I mean, is it that surprising? Like, someone just threw it over on a boat, right? Like, is it that crazy?
It just eventually just keeps falling down there. It's not a...
What's going to stop it, Andrew? It's just water. It just falls to the bottom of wherever you drop it in.
The pressure, I thought, might have crushed it at a certain point. But I guess if it's filled with water and that pressure matches, maybe it doesn't break it. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not a paleo.
Because the whole idea is that as you get further down the ocean, the pressure gets tougher for you to handle. That's why Aquaman's bulletproof. I'm
not a paleo veterinarian,
Chris,
Andrew.
This is science. Aquaman's bulletproof because he can survive at the bottom of the ocean.
Okay.
This is flawless. There's data here, Chris.
Again, though, the second half of this movie, roughly, is at this mansion. And Andrew, I've said it before on this podcast, it's happened again, get some major Resident Evil vibes from this movie. You've got the characters of Owen and Claire, like teaming up this guy and a girl, very Resident Evil thing. A little girl that's actually a clone, very Resident Evil, being stalked through a giant mansion by an unkillable monster, very Resident Evil. Dying by going through the skylight, very Resident Evil. A lot of hallmarks of the Resident Evil franchise, oddly, being represented here in this Jurassic World.
Would you say this is a better Resident Evil film than some of the Resident Evil films?
I mean, it's yes. Hashtag PP. I'm sorry, but yeah. Oh boy, man, that's that could be a month or two going through those.
There's 9 of those?
Yeah, it feels like it.
Yeah, but I have not. I'm actually planning to play Resident Evil 2. I've never dived into that franchise, but everything I've heard, yeah, it's all a lot of hallmarks there. Just playing
the remake, right? The PS4 remake is what you did.
The remake of 2, yeah.
My favorite game in the franchise, one of my favorite games of all time. I'm excited to hear your thoughts when you jump into that.
I'm probably going to be scared out of my mind. But
probably.
I just, and also showing that I'm on the forefront of things. I've also just started playing God of War, because I'm hip and I know things. So
2017 God of War,
2018, yeah, the
18
kind of
yeah.
The kind of the
legacy sequel to, yeah.
Well, I've heard that it's like it's like a new way forward. You can jump in at 18. You don't have to play all the ones for it. So
yeah, it's the same continuity, but it's a new location and you learn characters from the ground up. So
yeah, that's pretty straightforward. So, because I'm hip. I follow things. I don't just spend all my time playing Fortnite and wrestling games.
Have you played The Last of Us yet?
No,
dude. Both of those games, parts 1 and 2. Like I'm telling you,
I will play The Last of Us. Don't worry,
Andrew. I enjoyed this movie. Genuinely. Yeah. I don't like to talk negatively about other movies to praise the movie we're talking about, but I enjoyed it more than Jurassic World.
As did I.
Andrew, I can't believe there's only one more dino movie for us to talk about this month. I feels like we've been at this for a minute. It's been a lot of movies to get through here, but feels
like 65 million years.
But I don't like sound negative. I've enjoyed going through these movies.
Yeah.
I'm especially enjoying that I'm in an era where I'm watching movies for the first time in this franchise that I
Yeah.
hadn't seen before. And I'm glad at the end of this month I will have been able to say I've seen every movie in the Jurassic Park franchise. That's right. Jurassic Park franchise, not World franchise. That's the way it's always going to be for me. But for now, it's time for our question of the week, submitted in our Discord. If you want to leave a question for a future episode, guess what? You can. There's a link in our show notes to our Discord server. If you're not there already, what are you waiting for? It's free. It's fun. And you can ask questions, just like this one here, left by Oculus Neko, who asks, if you could have dinner with any fictional character, who would it be? And what would you talk about?
That's a great question.
Great question. It's simple, but man, broad at the same time. Like,
Yeah.
any fictional character, my God. I'm sure whatever, I don't know what my answers are now. It's going to be dumb. It's going to be so dumb. And
Oh,
like when I
yeah.
stop recording, I'm like, oh man, why didn't I say this?
What an
person?
idiot.
That would be much more of an interesting conversation. But I don't know. You start going through your favorites, like Batman's my favorite fictional character. But do I want to talk with that guy? I don't think so. I think I'll just be
Well, yeah,
sad.
because I'm trying to think of characters that I could like have a like relatively insightful conversation with. Like, like you said, Batman or like Superman. Superman would be the same way. It's like, do I want to talk to Superman though? Like, is there anything Superman and I could talk about that would be like groundbreaking for me? And like you think about like Hercule Poirot or even like Benoit Blanc.
That would
like
be
Benoit Blanc,
groundbreaking
like-
for you. What could Superman tell me that would impress me?
Well, like for me, like I feel like, especially if like not to nerd out, but like if I met Superman, like I don't even think I'd know what to talk about. Like I would just be like,
Yeah.
"Hello, sir, you're not real." But like you think about Poirot or even like Benoit Blanc. Benoit Blanc would probably be like fun. Like if I was
That'd be
thinking
fun.
of a character to like just have dinner with and have it be like a fun thing to do, like that would probably be fun.
What would you talk
That would
about?
probably be like my brain. We would probably talk about how bad he is at Among Us. And I would share that I too am not great at that game and how my mom beats me at Clue, and then he would make me feel better about that because it's a terrible, terrible game. But
I love Clue. I know he said
I
it's
do.
terrible.
I
know
do
quite in
too.
the
Don't get me
movie,
wrong, but he would make me feel better about my mom beating me at it all the time.
Yeah.
My mom can win Clue in like 4 moves. It's annoying as hell. I've never met anyone that plays that game as efficiently as my mom does. But yeah, Benoit Blanc would probably be like my like, I don't know if it's recency bias, but I would definitely go to that. Columbo, like I've been rewatching Columbo a lot.
Okay.
Because just I need my fix. I'm in the murder mystery place, so I've been watching like all of Columbo. There's an interesting show to watch just because Columbo runs regularly from the 70s to 2000 or so. Like it happens off and on. Like they would do like 8 episodes, and then
To
2 years later, they
2000?
do-
It goes that long?
Yeah, it really does. And it's very. I think it does. Hold on, folks. I'm going to check my math. But what I think is it has 2 pilots in the late 60s, and then runs until 2003.
Wow.
So that is technically 35 years. And so the interesting thing to me is, one, you watch the famous guest stars evolve over time. So like you start
Yeah.
with episodes where Leonard Nimoy shows up. And then you have episodes where Martin Sheen shows up. And then you have episodes where Ed Begley Jr. shows up. And like you watch time shift through the guest stars. Because Peter Falk is always the same. But he's just a fun everyman detective. The way he solves things is very simple. I think that would be fun just to have a conversation with Columbo. Just to understand his process a little bit more, because he's a little bit more rough around the edges than someone like Benoit, who's very, composed and analytical.
I think maybe Rocky Balboa. It's my favorite movie character. And in the later movies, I love the scenes where he's like at the restaurant and he's just like chatting with the people eating there about old fights and stuff. And that'd be cool to get to hear like a whole conversation of him talking about his career and talking about his fights and stuff. It's such a weird thing to try to put yourself in this scenario though, because like, yeah, that'd be so cool to talk with Rocky Balboa, but like,
You're talking with Rocky Balboa, not Sylvester Stallone.
Yes,
like
I would know. Like, this is just an actor. Like, but I know this is a hypothetical situation where it's not. But like, I don't know if I would really let myself like role play this scenario where
right,
listening
yeah,
to the Rocky
agree.
Balboa. But again, if we can go, full hypothetical situation or scenario here, yeah, that would be fun to hear the stories and his cadence, the way he talks. But again, these are all hashtag PP. And I'm only talking about my answers. They're all dumb answers. Like, there's probably something great. There's probably like a fictional character that has the meaning to life. That is the objectively correct answer to say here. And I just don't know. But
what about a fictional version of a real person? How does that work?
Fictional version of a real person.
So, like, what if I wanted to have dinner with Robert Oppenheimer from Christopher Nolan's movie Oppenheimer? Does that count?
Paul Giamatti as John Adams, please, not John.
Yeah, it's a great. It is a question because, like, yeah, you feel like there's a particularly, you find like that fictional character who has, somebody like Dr. Manhattan who has the answers to everything. It's like, oh yeah, talk to him, figure out the secrets of the universe, and it's like. If I met him, he'd probably just be like, "We want." Like it's like, is this fictional character even want to talk to me? But yeah, it's a tough one. But then there's characters where like you think about somebody like Jon Favreau's character from Chef. Just feels like he'd be somebody that would be just to watch him cook.
Again, that's just talking about Jon Favreau, though.
Like, is it like? But
I don't know. I feel like it is.
It is. It's so weird, but like at the same time. That's one of my favorite movies. Like, probably.
It's really good. It's
like top 10 comfort movies for me, definitely.
Talk about like a low stakes movie, man.
Man, that was his rebound movie too after Cowboys and Aliens. And Cowboys and Aliens kind of flopped, and he did Chef, and everyone was like, "Oh, you're cool again." And then he did Jungle Book, and everyone was like, "Dude, keep it going." And then he did Lion King, and we were like. Maybe not that much. But even though Lion King made so much money, I forget. Like, it's insane how much money that made. A live action lion, quote unquote live action lion.
Right. It's not.
Yeah, like Jungle Book at least had to. How much did that movie? That movie made $1.6 billion.
More than Fallen Kingdom.
Yes. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Columbo. End of the day,
Columbo. Final answer.
Yeah.
All right, I'll go ahead and lock in Rocky Balboa. Why not? That's what I'm talking to. Tell me what Apollo Creed was like. Tell me what it was like in all those fights. Tell me how like you were blind in one eye in one movie and then it never comes up again. What happened with that, Rocky?
So roids, is that a rumor? What's the deal there? Saying you're from 1 to 4, man, and that like 4 years you got really cut, and all you did was get older. Who
do you want to talk to? What's a better dumb answer than what we're throwing out here? What fictional character we talk to? What would you talk about? Wow us. Let us know how dumb we are for our answers. Tell us what you got. Hit us up on social media. Jump into that Discord. Let us know. We got one more dino movie to talk about this month. It comes next week. And until then, just remember that maybe not every movie is great,
but all movies have greatness.
Thank you to Mark Benavides for singing our theme song. Check him out on Instagram at NotThatMarkAnthony. And thanks to Mitch for the music. You can check him out on Twitter at I'm a Biggie Boy, and check our show notes for the SoundCloud link. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. It's the only way that we grow, and follow us on social media at BOTR Cast. Thank you.